What is up, guys? Another new video I've made. I've seen that my two shorts have gotten almost 800 and 1200 views respectively. My long format videos seem to be stuck around 20 to 25 views on average, but as I said when I first started, as long as one person watches my videos, that's all that matters. Today's topic will be more on some brutal reality I briefly mentioned in my previous video, but I didn't expand on it too much. As the title suggests, it will be about older women, Cougars, MILFs, GILFs, whatever you want to call them. Feminists often falsely claim how brutal a global supposed patriarchy was, and how men conspired to oppress women, but that's not what happened at all. Men compete and self-sabotage to where it should not be called a patriarchy at all. Here's my view: if it was an evil patriarchy, they would have enslaved women, and would not have made laws against rape, and those men who forced themselves onto women would not have faced punishments, but they did. On the contrary, I cannot promise that a global matriarchy wouldn't have been any better. If women were stronger than men, I'd fear for what that world would have looked like. I'm serious. Based on what I've read from some modern misandry and the fact that most men are essentially invisible to women. Only when they come out to force themselves to be visible are these women forced to acknowledge them, and as a result viewed as creeps, because if they were already invisible, well. Anyways, the love the majority of men have for women is what allowed women to not have been fully subjugated, the need to protect and need women's love and companionship, which in the modern day has become a source of exploitation and very brutally honest despair and sadness. And brothers, men as a collective, are getting so desperate to levels never seen before. A few years ago, I foolishly bought Tinder Platinum because I was desperate. I realize a mistake I made both at the time and now. I've made 7 videos so far, but I haven't really shared much about my personal life. All I've been doing is spouting data, which kind of makes for boring content, when there's probably thousands of videos out there like this, and no personal experiences to understand where the person is coming from. So anyways, I bought Tinder Platinum because I wanted to see my likes. But I also wanted to test something. I was like 20 to 21 years old, had my location set to where I live in the US, and thought, what if I moved to a big city like NYC or LA or Miami via Tinder Passport? Not much changed, if at all. I was hovering like around 4 to 14 likes on average. This was around the start of the COVID stuff, so there were more people that in theory should have been inside laid off from work. I was not. I was considered quote-unquote essential. After not seeing results, and seeing clearly that from those 4 to 14 likes that half were just women promoting their OnlyFans, it is quite disheartening to say the least. Next, I increased my age preferences. It was from women around my age 18 to 25 to 18 to 40, just to see. Nope, nada. Alright, 18 to 99, screw it, I am that desperate. By the way, sometimes, I hate using AI voices because in real life as I wrote this I laughed to myself in disbelief remembering these times. I got maybe like 2 to 5 more likes. Older women, clearly out of shape, some women that most men would deem as background noise, right? So I was like, damn, brutal. I next switched to Latin America, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Argentina. My likes went up to like 25 to 30. But again, I mean, I was broke, still am, ha ha ha. I have no means to travel to those places and splurge. Besides, the only reason they probably swiped right is because they saw my US pictures and they would undoubtedly view me as their meal ticket, the ATM machine and their way out and into the US. For the lols, I did Philippines and Africa on Tinder Passport. Philippines did not really do much for me, but countries like Mozambique, South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, as the manosphere calls it, SMV, seems to have gone up exponentially. I gained 100 plus likes just by doing that. So I was like, okay, I'd apparently be a so-called quote-unquote Chad in sub-Saharan African countries. But this was back in like 2020, 2021. I don't know that this so-called geomaxing would work, especially as more and more men find out about passport bros and the term geomaxing. I was beyond pissed though. I was like, I can't believe I fucking spent money on a dating app, just to see who swiped on me, and changed locations. How pathetic am I? But it did serve a good purpose. It taught me that I do not have a future in the US, sadly. If I stay here, I'll definitely rot, be that one forever alone man. With no long-term relationships, which I've never had. Unless I start heading out, doing cold approach, shooting my arrows at hundreds of women, and hoping one out-of-shape woman, probably a single mom too, picks me, or some crazy woman such as this one.
Because it was so scary. It was full and blood that came out of his mouth and his eyes weren't in his head.
Did you fall or something?
I don't know.
Okay, let me see your ear real quick. You touch your ear on something. Where'd you fall at?
I don't know.
Okay, did y'all have a fight or something?
Just a kind of a domestic thing, but I'm not gonna press any charges, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, did you hit him at any point?
No.
You sure about that? Because you have blood on your hands.
He fell. I came in and he was just...
Okay, why is there broken glass in there?
I don't know. I was helping him. His head was in my lap. I'm just worried about my boyfriend. Is my boyfriend okay?
You need to calm down.
Is he okay?
If you don't calm down, you're gonna end up in
Yeah.
handcuffs.
Somebody was about to tonight. I called 911.
I understand that, and we're trying to figure out what happened.
How can it be that you call to help someone and this is how you're treated?
Looks like you might have got ruptured eardrum, there's leakage and blood coming out. Put your hands behind your back.
Why?
Domestic violence.
Are you kidding me? I called 911.
So yeah? Anyways, back to the video. So next I started searching for YouTube videos on the women experience of Tinder. I wanted to see for myself what the other side experienced, and I was literally mind blown. I had never encountered those types of videos where men pose as women on Tinder and get shocked when they get blown up with likes, and I was like, no fucking wonder I don't get swipes. They get literally flooded with messages and likes. I was like, this is the issue. An individual man can say, oh, I'll be MGTW, I'll go my own way, and if he even had one woman interested, she'd be like, no problem, I'll move on to my next option. You see, it's because women have the power of choice. They seemingly have endless amounts of options nowadays thanks to the invention of the internet. Remember how I keep saying biological flaws? Well, our male brain seems to be hardwired to crave for female validation, female approval. And modern women know this. They can lie to you and say how they don't care about all these wannabe suitors throwing themselves in droves at them, but they're just being treated as celebrities. And most men are treated like fans, no matter how they look nowadays. Also important to keep in mind that the global population keeps increasing. I mean, just look at the difference between now and 100 years ago. The more people that live in this world, the more competitive it gets. Simple reality. That is why, in my opinion, those up top seem to kick the ladder down no matter what BS they try to sell us. They don't want, especially the men, the last thing they want is more men at their level competing with them. Some men call themselves this term excess men, or the excess male. This woman on Quora on some discussion brought up something interesting for thought. This is great because it helps explain, in my opinion, why nations have always been more than happy with sending young men in droves to fight one another in wars. It's a cunning strategy to get them to take out their angers, their frustrations on each other instead of back at their own people, the ruling class, which did happen multiple times throughout history regardless. I've been wanting to make a video on conscription because, in my opinion, it's one of the biggest slaps in the face and most obvious form of hypocrisy of the so-called strive for gender equality in the modern 21st century. There's all kinds of justifications for it. It's just very far from finished. I started the script but need time to say what I want 100%. Basically, to me, conscription is a synonym for the culling farmers use on their male livestock usually. The quote-unquote excess male. Haha. I'm striving a little off topic, as I tend to do, so I'll stop and save it for the future video. I promise. I know I keep saying every video that'll I make a video on conscription, I just don't where to start it. I think Rehab Room's video on Ukraine's quote-unquote oofy doofies is a great starting point, because it's honestly insane that while the young men are fighting on patches of dirt, the Ukrainian women are out there in Western Europe partying every weekend, with possibly new boyfriends, no doubt. Brutal, beyond brutal. Anyways, back on track. I had this crazy idea but I never recorded it, but I did show my friends who were in denial, who said I was terminally online. I showed them the data that shows that most modern-day couples met online. That's how most relationships started out in the 21st century. Regardless, I was hell-bent on proving to my friend group back then that I was right. One of them told me something like this. Don't worry, bro, they're in their 20s like you. Just want to find out about themselves, discover who they are, your life is barely starting. And I replied, yeah, then they'll come back and try to start a long-term relationship after they got a train full run on them, right? And he was like, whoa bro, have you been good lately? You're becoming a full-blown misogynist, man. And I replied kind of mad, I was pretty pissed off at that time. Why? Because I speak the truth. If they don't want you in their 20s, they'll just pretend to, later in life, to use you. And he of course wanted the last word. There's more to life than that, bro. some have to reach 70 before they find their true love. I burst out laughing because to me it was a funny joke, but that got me thinking. So when I got to the house, I made a fake Facebook profile. I looked up on Google some random pictures of an old lady. I put for my age, 72, and just for the sake of it put on my bio some made-up BS. I forgot exactly what I put, but what I think I put was, happily living life in my 70s, still full of life, love art, cats, baking, my children and my grandchildren. Seeking a long-term relationship. And what do you know, that fake profile got blown up with likes. I was actually at the time in disbelief, because the common narrative red pillars and others in the so-called manosphere state is that a woman's so-called beauty fades, some say at 25, others 30, 35, 40, 45 at latest. Point is, they mention how women will supposedly become lonely as fuck. That they are quote-unquote expired. Even if these swipes were planning to use this fictional grandma as a quick hookup, this grandma probably wouldn't view it that way. In her mind, she'd probably be shocked that so many men of all ages, especially young men, are after her. I read through bios just to see their perspectives from time to time. I recommend any man watching my video to do the same. Watch how many women in 2025 who are clearly 50 plus have begun to post on their bios young men only. As if they know they have endless options to swift through and can afford to be picky, unlike the narrative we've been told by the pickup artists and red pillars. Also, you have to take into account these women are pretty much on their way out. To them, having a 20-year-old lusting after them is wet material. Not all of them, though. I've read some bios that say something like, "No young men, I don't want to date someone my grandson's age or son's age, etc." But more often than not, I see women celebrating their so-called cougar label. And the crazy part is not that older women get swipes, it's who is swiping on them. Young dudes. Guys my age. Guys who recently turned 18. Why? Is it because they genuinely want a relationship with a 72-year-old? Or are they doing it because modern dating has gotten so bleak for men that, hey, attention is attention? A match is a match. Or they're lonely and just said, screw it, all I want is some companionship. At least they're seen by someone, they're not totally invisible, and treated as if they were some kind of ghost. The biggest winners to me in this modern social outcome? Women, of course. All their lives they've been told, find a good man, keep him, because you don't want to grow old and be alone, and now they're simply just able to afford to not only divorce their now elderly husbands, and possibly get half of his income, but also replace him with a much younger man, if she wanted to, keyword, if. Some women who don't want male attention literally just spend their last years traveling, pursuing their hobbies, etc. They don't seem to miss any men at all, despite all those lonely cat lady jokes. Meanwhile, most men don't even have one friend by age 40. That's the real imbalance. Women can afford to walk away. Men can't. Because when a woman leaves a man, she loses one person. When a man loses a woman, he loses his entire social life. People pretend we're equal, but as we can see, well, up for another brutal story? So coincidentally, around the same time when my dad suffered a stroke, one of my friends from a few years ago also had a dad who suffered from one. Luckily, both of them are still alive and kicking. But his dad literally wished he died instead. So my friend hit me up to hang out, so I went, and he began to tell me how his mom literally just walked away and left the dad after the stroke. In my head, I was thinking about my own family struggles we were facing, but I decided not to share them. I just listened to what he had to say. His dad felt like it was no issue, my then friend told me in his father's exact words. She left me? No matter, I'll find another woman. Son, before I met your mother I used to be kind of a player. Your old man will be with a new woman by the end of the week. In my head I was like, whoa, this poor man is delusional as fuck. He's like, what, 57? And he's not exactly rich. I told my friend. Well, I wish him good luck, man, but dating is a lot different than from when he was a kid. And my friend agreed with me, totally. We started making jokes about how back then women were limited to their local areas. They had no idea of the global marketplace. Simps swiping right on every single woman's profile out of desperation. So before I left I asked my friend, well bro, next time we hang out let me know your dad's update. So I asked him. And it was brutal. Brutally depressing. What occurred was pretty much what I had predicted. This guy's dad was like average height, 5'9", overweight, wore glasses. To his credit, he was not balding, he had a lot of hair for his age. Anyways, I was like, "Yo, has your dad found any luck?" And my friend literally said, "You were right, man, he kind of gave up. I saw him texting fucking bots. He thought they were real women, and I told him a brutal truth. Dad, there is no women in the 21st century who'll be texting you immediately and frequently. These are scammers." So it took him to reverse search images of some of the so-called women his dad talked to break him, to show him that he was talking to fake profiles. After that, apparently his dad became some kind of passport bro, and honestly, some men would rather spend all their money away pretending some woman in the third world loves them, when she sees him as nothing but an ATM machine. As for my then friend, this guy ended up moving to I think Arizona. And he randomly unfriended me one day, so there's that. But yeah, brutal reality check for an old man. Brutal. That is why I feel kind of bad for men I see do the most strenuous, most physical labor out there. I can totally see a future when they suffer a catastrophic injury and women mass replace them for a new guy, like a broken toy thrown away and replaced by a new one. Divorce laws just add fuel to the fire and encourage this. My own dad calls me smart for saying I will probably never marry. He says I have the right mentality. Although to be fair, he has thrown a few jabs at me once in a while for still being single at 25. Whenever he brings up his youth, I instantly dismiss it. I'm like, "Dad, whatever you did in your younger years does not apply to today's age. Your advice is quite honestly meaningless." Nobody's dating stories from even 20 years ago apply anymore. People keep pretending nothing changed. They see their grandparents married for 50 years and think that still applies today. It doesn't. Those marriages survived because the world forced men and women to depend on each other. Today, everyone is hyper-independent, hyper-connected, and hyper-available to strangers. A 60-year-old woman can get more validation in one afternoon than her grandmother got in an entire lifetime. That changes behavior. That changes incentives. Why stay with one partner when you can relive your 20s through younger men? The collective male desperation knows no bounds, to the point that now even old women are, in my opinion, are actually rejoicing. If they want to be alone, they can afford it. They want a young man and don't want their elderly male partner complaining about some bodily pains that have begun to affect him, or more brutally, some type of ED. She can replace him. Like bruh, these like videos of women supposedly crying because men are not approaching them anymore is false. It's a feel-good story, a cope.